Hey everyone, it's Scaro here. Just have a cool gameplay that I wanted to share with you guys and kind of put some of my thoughts and commentary over everything. Just some of my initial thoughts on Call of Duty Cold War and just how the CDL is coming out to look since the rule set just came out today. So my initial thoughts on the game are it's in a really good spot. I think especially once everything kind of gets figured out and everybody figures out the balances and things like that to the game's going to play really well. I think the devs have given us a very good starting point, and I think with some balances and checks and things like that, we'll really see a polished Call of Duty and one that's going to be one of the most fun ones that we've had in years. I have to say about my only frustration are like the burst rifles are a bit kind of suffocate the gameplay in my opinion, especially in the skill-based matchmaking bracket that I'm in. So I think over time they'll get tuned to a better spot. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about this gameplay too. So this is my first game where I dropped 70 plus kills in a public match. I kind of figured out how to stop holding down L3, and then the other thing is to change a little bit of my response curve settings now that those just got added in. So I'm playing on the dynamic response curve, so this is my first game playing with that. So there's plenty of information on the internet how that works, but basically you have the AES, your gun moves less from where you're at. I really wanted the 4-piece right there. So when you're ADS, your gun moves slower the further you move away from the center point, I guess, if that makes sense. So it's a little more sensitive at the center and less sensitive at range. So if you're using a submachine gun or something like that, it helps focus down your longer range shots. I kind of waited my shots out here because I figured there'd be multiple people coming up the ladder, which was rare. Thankfully my teammate cleans the guy up here. But I kind of just found my shot and pacing for this game and just kind of popped off with that. But yeah, the game plays really well. I think it'll be interesting to see how these spawns get completely figured out, because I have them down for the most part. About the only scenarios that are specific that I haven't quite figured out yet is situations where once the hill flips, if you don't have somebody in the anchor spot, it'll full spawn the enemy team or anybody who's coming off respawn behind you. And then sometimes even if you do have an anchor spot or like not enough concentration of your teammates back there, then you'll sit there and have like one person spawn. So I haven't quite figured out the exact reason why that like individual opponent will spawn in behind your team there. So that's about the last thing I have to figure out for most of the maps. But it'll be something that kind of gets figured out over time. Yeah, so that's kind of my first initial thoughts on the game. I really like where it's at. Skill-based is kind of intense at times, especially because you'll have some games where your team's going like 250 to 20 against the opponents, and you're in the reverse scenario the very next game. So it's kind of difficult to find consistency. If you do find consistency in games, you really have to work really hard at getting those. But it is fun having people actually shoot back at me, so it's not just me shooting bots 24/7, and then kind of feeling like, man, I'm actually good at the game. And then once I get into like actual ranked or comp matches or anything like that, I actually have a gunny instead of sitting there getting smoked really hard every single time. But that's something that'll come with time. A couple of other things to think about with this too. I think there are some of the it's been weird kind of getting adjusted to the new score streak system too. I like it. I think with the, at least from playing today, one game in, I've experienced less of score streak vomiting. So I think Treyarch did a really great job. I'm just now thinking about this. This is my first time really getting to digest like score streak changes and how they feel. But yeah, this is, I think the changes that they've made with Treyarch, or that the changes that Treyarch made today, did a great job in terms of kind of helping the score streak vomit not happen anymore. Just because I haven't had moment where the first attack helicopter gets called in, and then all of a sudden there's just 3 more for the next 2 minutes, which is really nice. But it's a system that I'm kind of getting adjusted to. We'll see how it goes. I think it'll work well for CDL because you won't really see like pros or anybody really overlap streaks. It'll be the one person who pops off, maybe the one to get streaks, whereas other people won't. I don't know how it'll translate, into respawn just yet, but we'll see how it plays out like that. Since we're on the topic of CDL, I'll talk a little bit about kind of what I've been seeing, how I like it so far. Been watching a fair amount of tournaments and scrims the past few days, just kind of getting a sense of the game, how it's playing, different tips and tricks that I may not know just yet, and getting a sense of those. The rule set just came out today. It's something where I definitely see the pros doing a fair amount of GAing in order to adjust to the rule set. Also, I just want to talk about this hill on this map really quick. I've always tried to play on the hill or around it, and I've just kind of given it up. It's one where I just end up dying a lot and not having very much fun, so I just perch myself up here and try and get the kills. That's been my new strategy for it, and it's been working really well for me. Yeah, so as for the CDL, with the rule set coming out, so I find it a little bit odd, unless there's something I don't know just yet. Syntaxes aren't allowed in the normal CDL rule set, but I don't see. It'll be kind of interesting because I see it, at least from tonight, with all the scrims and tourneys that were going on. The pros and everybody are still playing with syntaxes. They haven't necessarily observed that specific rule. So I don't know when the first matches will start happening. It'll probably be around the start of January, right? So if it's not changed by then, it'll be interesting because I think it'll be the first time where there's something that the CDL itself bans that the pros are going to want in the CDL as compared to what the league is going to try and allow in sanction. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays out. The other things that are a little interesting to me is that the burst rifles or marksman rifles, or I don't think they're called the tactical rifles, I think. I don't know. The AUG and M16 are allowed, which is a bit weird to me, just with how powerful they are. But it's something that I know is already on. I go huge right here, actually. That the pro scene is already doing like GA. So I don't really foresee that being necessarily an issue. I think the part where I'm more concerned about it is usually whatever the current CDL rule set is what is used in the ranked league. So unless there's changes I keep wanting to snipe the guys that are coming off spawn here, but they just keep pushing me. Anyway, so whatever the current CDL rule set is the one that'll end up getting used in the ranked ladder, which is fine, but there's just some things where I don't know how that's a dynamic curve that I'm not used to right there. This is my first game with it. Anyway, yeah, so whatever the pros end up using, or whatever is in the CDL rule set is what will end up being used in the ranked playlist. This guy needs to work on his reaction. Anyway. So I'm a little bit concerned about that because there's some things that I don't feel should be allowed and that I definitely think will be abused. So the meta for what will end up getting used in the... I need to work on sniping in that dynamic curve. But anyway, the meta for what will be used in the CDL or the ranked playlist will be excruciatingly different from what will be in the pro scene, which I think is going to be an interesting dichotomy to work with. Just because, I don't know, last time we had a ranked playlist, whatever the GAs were, in the higher end of the bracket, a lot of people respected. It wasn't until like one person brought out, I think it was a Black Ops 4, until like one person brought out like the FMJ, whatever that gun was, and everybody else would start using it. It wasn't until that happened. So traditionally in the ranked playlist, at least in the higher brackets, people PDAs. They don't really abuse them unless somebody else starts first. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for this title. That's kind of my first thoughts. I guess I can talk a little bit briefly about teams. I think the top teams as it stands are going to continue to be Dallas Empire and FaZe, especially FaZe this year. They're going to be a pretty stacked roster. I think they'll end up playing out. Let's see, can I look at the scoreboard? Yeah. So right now, I end up stopped playing the objective just so I can sit there and see how far I can get in terms of kills by the end of the game. But we're at 61 right now, which is kind of nuts. Which is why I'm actually deciding to jump on this hill, because I'm just trying to get as many kills as possible right now. But anyway, I think Atlanta FaZe and Dallas Empire are going to be the number 1 and 2 teams for the majority of the season. I think if there's anybody that will be kind of moving in and out of the standings with them, it'll be LA Thieves, especially if they find their footing early on. And then I think Optic Gaming is the other one that will be competing kind of to make them out first and second spot, along with Dallas and FaZe. But I think Dallas and FaZe for sure are going to be the ones that just kind of hold on to that the most consistently. With that being said, I think Thieves and Optic Gaming are the ones that are going to be the 3rd and 4th, and I think Minnesota Rocker and I had this in my head. Minnesota Rocker, and then there's one more team. Oh, NYSL are going to be like the 5th and 6th teams this year too. So it'll be something that'll end up getting found out. I don't remember if I get a pistol kill here or not, but I hope that I do. I think there's one guy that spawned behind me. I didn't get the opportunity. Or never mind. Yeah, so anyway, it happened like that. And then that guy, oh no, somebody else behind me. He doesn't 180 on me. But anyway, so that's the game. We finished 72 and 18. But I think the CDL is going to be really competitive this year. I think at least the top 6 teams that I just listed right there are going to be able to easily compete with each other. So I think the top 6 positions are going to be constantly battling it out. So I'm excited for the competitive scene this year, and it seems like all the maps and game modes are playing really close and competitive too, especially with teams. So it's going to be one's game modes, or at least the way the game's designed this year. Mistakes can be very easily punished, so it'll be the teams that really put in the practice and refine themselves that'll end up coming out on top. So anyway, just had this cool gameplay, wanted to toss it out there and put some thoughts on it. So if you guys liked it, of course, drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you guys later. Have a good one. Bye.